Our Green Sunday presentation is for two of our Green candidates. First, we'll hear from Josh Jones, running for governor. Josh is from Davis, where he was active working for Bernie Sanders for the primary, and then he discovered what the Democrats are really like at the conventions and left them and joined the Greens. And more immediately to my left is Saied Karamooz, running for mayor of Oakland. And Saied has already been endorsed by the Oakland Greens and the local Greens, so he'll be talking about his campaign after Josh starts us off. So give a warm welcome to them, and we'll hear from them.
Right, so my name is Josh Jones. I'm running for governor 2018 in the Green Party, and some of you have already met me before. Like he was mentioning, I heard about Bernie, I think it was June of 2015. And some of us started talking like, wow, this guy he's saying things that are lefty, he's speaking to all the concerns, and he has solutions. Let's jump on board this. Let's go to a meeting in Sacramento. We got literature there, and there were a lot of people that showed up. And so we started our group in August of, let's see, June. It might have been July, but I think for sure it was August of 2015. And we went really strong. We were tabling twice a week. And we got a whole lot of volunteers. We saw how hungry people were for that. Now, then we started seeing the huge turnouts, right? And so now, as I look back on it, I think, one of the reasons I think that millennials and Gen Xers and boomers and people who are lefty feel so hopeful right now and feel such a spirit of change is that we saw an army of people out there responding to unequivocal socialist, democratic socialist ideas and solutions. And so as Jan was mentioning, we fought really hard during the primary. We actually won Yolo County for Bernie. If you look on the map during the primary, if you look on the map, we're a little island in the middle of. So people do it. I think it was green and yellow is how the map I saw was. So interestingly, Bernie's areas were green. I thought was kind of fun. Not that he's a green. And
but his voters might be.
Mm-hmm.
I said his voters might be.
His voters might be. Certainly the spirit of them. And so, we were like an island in the middle of this area. There were a few others, Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo stuck out for me. And that was kind of pushing against the tide of what may have been election fraud. A lot of us worked really hard to make sure that provisional ballots were counted because those were being left out, and it was a shame. So it turned out that the vote was bigger than people thought. So we know that we won that county with our 300 volunteers getting out, flyering everywhere, talking to people constantly, and the excitement and everything. We knew that we won with $5,000. And the reason that's important, aside from it being a very low number, is that after this was happening, I got asked to help recruit. Once Bernie wasn't the nominee, I said, forget this. I'm going to the Greens. Signed up with the Greens. Went to a rally. We started. And actually, it wasn't Jill that was there. It was Pajama Baraka. Jill was sick or something. But anyway, the Greens were there in force in Davis, and we asked, is there a county council in Yolo County? And Eric Reichenberg was the MC at that meeting, and he said no. It was the first time I had met him. He said, no, it's not. I said, what? It's shocking. We have to do something about this. So Sadie, my campaign manager, and I, to call her out, we got together with other people from the Bernie campaign, who had had enough of that with the Democrats, and we started forming the county council there. At some point, I was approached to do this strange sort of pirate dem action, and I got a bunch, and I sort of got convinced to do this. Everyone was afraid I was going to get co-opted. It was really funny. I told them, I swore up and down, if you knew me and how I talk about how corporations do not have human rights, you would know that there's no way I'm ever going to get co-opted. But I thought this was an interesting experiment, so I got a bunch of lefties, organizers and activists that I knew, and we went into this thing. There were 58 counterparts all over California, because there are 58 counties in California. And we went into this thing called the ADEMS, which some of you may have heard about, and we got, those are Democratic, the ADEMS are Democratic delegates, the lowest elected position in the Democratic Party. And we were really excited that we got 70% of the delegates, but come to find out, they're only a third of the representation for the convention. The other third are elected officials, and the other third are superdelegates who are appointed by the elected officials. And so this 70% that we thought we had was really not 70% at all. But it was all very interesting, and it still is quite useful, because I have people who feed me information about what the Democrats are up to, the kind of things they're messing around with, and it helps guide some of the things that we do. We have this intel that's coming in. It's very interesting. But it was nice to have that success as well, because what happened was, since and I didn't run as a delegate, I was just an organizer for it, a recruiter. But so they ran on a slate, and the planks that they ran on were very, very lefty planks. We wanted to see, will the people respond? We saw how they responded before. Let's try to get it in a different way. And the prior ADEMs, they happen every 2 years, was the turnout was 70 people, including the 30 people who were running to be delegates, and there are only 12 that are elected. And in our case, because of the way that we were just speaking from our hearts, and we were saying, Black Lives Matter, and water is life, and we need single-payer health care, and all the things that you're familiar with, being part of the 10 pillars of the Green Party, essentially. And because that's, those are lefty principles. Those are lefty goals that we need to fulfill, laws that we need. So in this instance, 700 people came out in the wind and rain and completely horrified the establishment Democrats. They were sort of like aghast. There was one guy who was, he works for our local congressperson, John Garamendi, who I get to know pretty well. It's pretty funny. And so Angel is the guy that works for him there in the office. And he was sort of staring at me with these giant eyes, this look of horror, like what has happened? Because we ignored their whole system. They're supposed to be vetted. The people who get in the Central Committee of the Democrats, those people would be they would schmooze rich people, and then they were in there, then they would get elected, and then they would be groomed, and then you would start on after this long process, you would maybe become a delegate if you did what they said to do. You were good, right? And then so these people are very co-opted and bought. We just ignored that, jumped over the whole system. So it was exciting, and they were out there in the wind and rain, and everybody was having fun. And I was immediately made deputy convener for that because Bob Shaleen was trying to pop me. He's the chair of the Democratic Central Committee of Yolo County. And so, in any case, we went to the convention. We tried to do some, we tried to get a chair elected to the California Democratic Party. Basically, what we found is that they cheated at every turn. Whenever something, you seemed like you had an edge, it seemed like we had enough people to get this person, Kimberly Ellis, elected, who, had lost her house during the crash in 2007 and 8 in Richmond. She had, anyway, she was okay. We thought, we'll throw him behind her. when the numbers looked close, and I knew people in the county room who were kind of like, hey, looks like we might win. And all of a sudden, 200 people showed up with badges, delegate badges, that people knew they were from some other county, like LA and San Francisco, really. And their counties didn't match. They were invalid, completely cheating. So Bauman is the guy who pulled this off, apparently. And so she lost by 62 points, and there was a recall and all this. What we found is that at every level, at the national level, at the state level, and then even at the county level, where there was an attempt to take over the county parties, Bauman just unilaterally said, well, we're not going to have those elections happen every 2 years. We're going to have them happen every 4 years. So you people will all be gone by the time this happens, and we don't have to worry about you. So they moved the goalpost. And I was getting more and more annoyed, even though I was being called like a member of the party and a leader in the party and everything, and I sort of didn't like hearing that. And that was because the Bernie-crats were this surge in the Democratic Party. But we were all horribly disgusted, and I said, at some point I just started going to the Green Party meetings again before I was out of them, because they're so backbiting and so undercutting and cheat so much, and the Green Party is so welcoming and believes in all the right things. I just couldn't stand it anymore, and so I had to say that I would leave them. And so we started, Sadie was talking about, my campaign manager was saying, the Green Party is asking certain people to run for governor. And Susan Sarandon turned it down, and Starhawk turned it down, and different people. And so I sort of offered slightly, and then turned out that was acceptable for certain reasons, partly because a lot of women had been asked. But I suppose I should talk about what we're doing in the campaign. So we have 3 tiers in our campaign, 3 campaign goals. The first is relatively simple, to elevate the dialogue, to talk about the 10 pillars of the Green Party to people out in California, and change the dialogue. Just like at some point we got rid of, people got rid of the idea of trickle down was acceptable, that it's, we destroyed that concept, it's not used anymore. And so the same thing, the dialogue needs to change and be elevated. The third tier is that we think we have a chance to win and get into the top 2. And one of the reasons for that is that I was an organizer with the Bernie-crats, and they know me. So if you look at this up, they're about 17% of the electorate. And if you take, right now there are 43 people running for governor. There's quite a few Democrats, there are quite a few Republicans, quite a few independents, a couple libertarians, and so on. And if you divide 100% grossly by 40, you get 2.5. So let's say, as a broad stroke, let's say everybody got 2.5. Well, if I can get 17%, or 20%, that easily can put me in the top 2. Now, obviously, it's not going to be evenly divided; it won't be average. But we think we can actually win and get in the top 2. And sometimes we joke that we're going to destroy top 2 by using it to win. And then, of course, the Democrats and the Republicans will, do away with it instantly. And then our second tier goal is that we are going to every single county in California. We've already been all the way to the far north and all the way to the far south, Siskiyou County, Imperial County, north and south, and east and west. Here we are in the west of California, sort of center-west. We're going to Calaveras in like a week, I think.
Calaveras is later.
Well, maybe
2 weeks.
Right, we'll talk to each other. But so we're going all over, and when we go to a county, when I go to a county, I will say, here's a collection of people. What are the problems in this place? And then we'll come up with solutions, right? An example in Imperial County is that the Salton Sea is drying up, because the Colorado River water has been promised out through treaty to basically the receiving states are California, Arizona, and Nevada, and Mexico is supposed to get an allocation. It can't get an allocation anymore; it's all used up. So the most of the time, the Colorado doesn't even go into the Sea of Cortez, and because of this, no water is available to go to the Salton Sea, and it's drying up. But there are a couple water sources. There are 3 little rivers. One is called the New River, which water source is from manufacturing plant waste, sewage, and agricultural runoff. It's really awful water going. We looked, the sign, we went and visited, the sign, there's a big sign there, and it says, there's a chain fence around it, it says peligro, like danger, do not go in this water. Then we went to the Salton Sea, and the water is sort of an orange, brown, murky color, and it smells bad because of all the dying animals and the pollution going into it. And so as this dries up, the soil is exposed, goes into the air, and it hurts to breathe in Imperial County. And it's just everywhere. And apparently, from what we've heard, we haven't been there while this is happening, if the wind picks up, people's noses bleed. So it's pretty horrible conditions. And so anyway, we got together a bunch of organizers, and we are going down there on the 22nd of this month to go to their activating county council. And so that's one of the goals, is to go out and activate the remaining county councils. Right now there are 33 active counties, and so the remaining out of the 58, we're going to go out there and try to activate all of them. I don't know if we can achieve that goal, but when we go, we stopped in Trinity, and there are a lot of Greens there. So it's not, even though there are Trump ads in the newspaper, we went and asked, and they laughed at us and saying like, "Oh, are there Greens here?" Yeah, there are a lot of Greens here, but just in this little town? No, everywhere. And actually, if you look at Trinity, a lot of organic farms are there. So it's not the way people think. There are Greens in all of these counties. Probably even there are probably Greens in Modoc County. That would be the most far flung, but and hardest to believe. But we are going to try to get out there too. So we have this multi-tier thing that we're doing, and we think we can win, and it should be. Well, it has been a lot of fun so far to get out. We drive everywhere, and so we talk about the things that the campaign stands for. So single payer. I was a big proponent of SB 562. Been to many rallies in Sacramento. I know the CNA nurses. I don't really. I'm a little bit disappointed in Roseanne DeMauro because she's pushing one of the Democrats.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom. So there may be a little bit of machinations going on there, but the rank and file for sure don't want Gavin Newsom. He got booed on stage at the Democratic convention when she tried to foist him off on the Bernie grants. So it's not working the way they think. So single payer is very desired by the folks in California. It's a pretty overwhelming majority of people. We need to overturn Citizens United, and I'm really glad that there's something on the ballot that is asking the people whether or not they should ask for a constitutional amendment that a corporation is not a person and money is not speech, which is, I think, incredibly important. 80% of Republicans even believe that is true, that corporations are not people, do not have human rights. So we can get this, we can get that passed. Many other things. We need to address affordable housing and the mental health crisis. We see it so many times when we ask, in Santa Clara County or here in Alameda, and really the Bay Area that's a big focus, that there's a homelessness problem and an affordable housing problem, and many solutions to that, many reasons that exist. One that we just were discussing with Barry, it was 2 days ago in San Francisco. He's running for Congress against Pelosi, and he thinks he has a really good chance because she's running unopposed. So he may be doing, I can throw his name out there, he may be debating her, which would be very different. And apparently she's actually coming out and showing up at SEIU, which she has not done the entire time that she's been in office. So he may be debating someone who might be the most powerful Democrat. And that would be very, very good for the Green Party. Very elevating for the Green Party to have that happen. So we were talking to him, and he pointed out that one of the problems that is making affordable housing, is making the rents go up so high, is Airbnb, right? Because occupancy is actually quite high. It's low in the sense that people aren't actually living in many places. There are areas in San Francisco apparently where nobody lives. It's all rented, but it's not always rented. So it's not occupied all the time, but it's constantly unavailable. Airbnb is a powerhouse. It's making a ton of money, and they're completely unregulated. So I guess some cities are attempting to say that they can only rent, a homeowner can only rent like 90 days a year. And that would be, that would be a way to dial it. It's something that I hadn't considered. I have been saying, and I think this is true, that the California government can and should be making government housing and doing it in the style that I lived in Denmark for about a year. And they build in such a nice way. They're the densest country in Europe, which is already pretty dense. And they build these really high buildings that are beautiful, and you would never know that it's high. It's not like a project or something. It's not, it doesn't have the feeling of government projects, and we need to avoid that. They have gardens, and I think people can buy the flats so that there's an opt-in about it. But we cannot trust developers to build housing, even affordable housing. People who are on the streets and are down and out, they're not going to be able to afford, fairly reasonable rent. So we have to make it so that people can get off the street, and we have to make it so that there is housing being built where they don't have to sort of wangle with the municipalities. We'll pay you off this fine, and we don't want to do affordable housing. They often do that. It happens in Davis all the time. It happens in all municipalities. So what's on the books of affordable housing, is this percentage is often not true, and that's part of what's happening. But we can't trust the developers for the solution. We need to think of other ways to get affordable housing and deal with the housing crisis and the homeless crisis. And then, of course, the mental health crisis has to be dealt with, and single payer should have mental health care included, along with dental and vision. These are very important things. It's the job of the leadership of a place, of a state, to create conditions where the people can thrive. It is not the job of the leadership to create conditions where people are extracted from. And this is what's been happening at least since the 70s. But we have to dial that back, and we have to have strong leaders that will help the people and address, come up with solutions for the ills that have been in our society since the tax revolt of 1978. So I'm Josh Jones. I hope you vote for me. My website is josh4gov.org. Please look at my website. And the Twitter is the same, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Greg, are we doing Q&A?
No.
No? Just okay. Oh, great. Well, thanks everyone. My name is Saied Karamooz. I'm running for the mayor of Oakland. And I really wanted to echo a lot of things that Josh said, particularly with regard to that this is a winnable race. I do sincerely believe that we have a chance to win and become a mayor of Oakland and have a green candidate or a green mayor for that matter. So what I'd like to do is to kind of give you the big picture of the campaign, the philosophy behind it, the game plan to win, and things that you can do to help with that. There are these pamphlets in the back. I don't know if you've picked them up or not, but please do. The number one thing that I'm hoping to achieve in this campaign is to really kind of change the rules of the game, change the narrative in which the candidates engage with the community, with the voters, and bring some sensibility, if you will, into the conversation. Number one is I want to start the conversation with the principles of the candidates. What do they really believe? For example, do they believe that more cops is the solution to public safety, or do they believe housing, jobs, and education are the ways to achieve public safety? That's one example. Do they believe in privatizing and relying on the private industry for our schools, for housing, or do they believe that it is the government and the city's job to take care of its people? So that's kind of the high level. I really want us to be in that position. I feel that now that we have a campaign that's been mobilized for a couple of months now, we've been working at it since November. So I feel that we have an opportunity to really begin to engage in that level. The second thing I want to talk to you about is the platform itself. The platform is basically really underpinned by the notion that everything is all about the budget. So wherever we put our money, that's our priorities. That's how we are going to achieve things. So talk is cheap, but when you go to really see where somebody's priorities are, it's in the budget. So in the budget, my key platform program is to take $75 million from OPD's budget. OPD's budget, Oakland Police Department's budget, is $225 million a year. So it's about $250 million. That's about a quarter of the city's budget. The budget for the city is about $1 billion. So they take $75 million from that each year and allocate $25 million to each of the three programs: education, housing, and jobs. And then for each of those, there are detailed ways that we would spend that money to have dignified housing, including addressing the homelessness by virtue of having low cost or no cost interest for homes, to construct both rental and for sale homes. Home is a bigger thing than a place where we kind of go to rest at night. And so home, in fact, in the US, the number one retirement plan is a paid off mortgage and Social Security. It's not 401k plans, it's not pension programs, all this. So for as long as people are renting, they're denied that financial security at advanced age. So the longer they stay in a rental home, it's another year that's delayed to achieve that. So we want to get people in homes that they own. It's very critical. For people who own their homes, the skyrocketing prices actually is not a bad thing, right? It's our investment that's growing. But for people who are renting, it's a disaster because it's their rents that are going up and ratcheting up and ratcheting up, and they get priced out and they have to move out. So it's a big deal, right? So home is a very, very big deal. It's security, it's safety, it's comfort, it's all of those things that really kind of come into one thing, one notion, one concept. Jobs is another kind of a leg to this 3 or 4-legged stool, in that when people have safe, secure jobs that, you know, are able to pay their bills and have some time to rest, not work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, don't have the stress, then they can attend to other matters, taking care of the kids, you know, get engaged in the community, have a life. So I believe that is critical to also having a properly functioning community and actually public safety, frankly. And then the third thing is education. Education is basically I don't want to use cliches that it's a right, not a, you know, privilege or something like that, but really it's an obligation from us to the next generation of people who are in the richest spot of the richest country of the, you know, in the world, right? It's just inexcusable that our schools have lead in the pipes, right? It's inexcusable that the laboratories don't have adequate equipment. It's inexcusable that our schools are in a state of disrepair. It's inexcusable that we don't have proper, you know, language and vocational skill training and after school programs and summer programs and all those things that create a nice educational, a kind of a surround and kind of a full experience. So those are kind of the key aspects of the platform. For each of them, we've created an advisory group, and we will be using kind of people who are known in the community as experts and authority in each of these. But every single one of them will have a series of actionable and measurable commitments. So it won't be broad strokes, you know, we will, you know, improve truancy in our schools, right? It'll be series of actually how we're going to spend $25 million a year on our education and our public schools, right? We'll make a commitment that we're going to repair the schoolyards, remove the lead from the pipes or from the fountains or whatever it takes to make sure there's no lead consumed by the students, for example. The jobs program, again, will have specific, and there are some of them are listed in this document, but really it's going to get baked a lot more in the next couple of weeks. We will increase the public works department by the tune of 150 people. When we kind of walk through the streets of Oakland, I really feel that we've become numb to how these streets look. My challenge to any Oaklander is, if you have an out-of-town guest, you give me one path from when they enter Oakland to your home that you would be proud to take them through. Whether they arrive by airport, by highways, by Amtrak, by BART, or by the bus station. Whichever way they arrive, you give me that one path that will be clean streets, graffiti-free, well-kept landscaping, that you would say, you know what, I'm proud of my city as I take them through this path. You won't find it. I don't care where you live. I don't care which way they come in. We're going to clear that out. We're going to absolutely landscape and artscape the heck out of this city. It's a beautiful place. It needs to be respected. And once people come and see that, and once people wake up in the morning and walk into our streets, they will never drop another piece of trash on the street because it will stick out like a sore thumb. And if there's graffiti overnight, we will clear it out by the next night before the sun goes down. Because we will have the resources to do it, and we'll respect our city, and we'll employ our people, and we will have a city that we can all be proud of. We'll have proper, that's kind of one aspect. These are things that are really intended to catch people's attention and really question and agree that it doesn't matter. If you live in the hills, if you're making money, you know, hand over fist, you can't argue with it. You cannot say this current administration is serving me well. The homelessness in the streets, the encampments, are not just bad for the people who have to suffer this indignity of being in the street, not having proper hygiene services, not having, so forth and so on, being completely unemployable to no fault of their own. It's just that they cannot, shave their beard in the morning, comb their hair in the morning in order to go to a job interview and, be presentable, right, and really be considered for someone who comes into work, right? So it's not, but the point I'm trying to make is not just bad for them. It's bad for the person who owns the property where they have these homeless people are sleeping in front of and have to urinate and defecate in front of that place because that property value is going down. And that property is probably owned by somebody in the hills. So it's not good for anyone. So that's why when we allocate these city funds to these kinds of things and we eliminate these issues, everyone will benefit. And then housing, bless you. I mentioned a few things, but really at the heart of it will be programs that will help people come into their own homes. Of course, there will always be a need for, protection for renters and things like that, but we really have to respect the other aspect of that really is home ownership. So that's the real essence of it. The areas, and I wanted to save time for questions and answers, so there's a lot more to go into detail. But there are really, my asks are of three nature. One is go on the website, everyonesmayor.org, and endorse. And all we need is just your name, and you can see, we just list names. If you know of an organization, association that you think would be make an endorsement, just send us a note so we can then put that on our radar and then we'll follow through with them. The second thing is just gatherings. We want to be able to get in at people's kitchen table, so they can get to know us. And we're calling it, and we can have all kinds of names. So we want your vote, not your wallet. At all of these events, we will not accept donations. If someone wants to make a donation, great. They can go on the website, do it privately at their own. But no one's going to feel, awkward and uncomfortable because you're going to pass a hat around. We're going to look who's putting in money, or they feel like they. So we will not accept donations. And this campaign is not about running a campaign, a traditional, conventional campaign. So for the sake of conversation, if it requires $250,000, which is really the number that is needed to run a campaign, a conventional campaign, and if we win, it would be a hollow victory in my opinion. If we win this campaign with $25,000 budget, then it means that it was real. That it means that it opens the door for others to feel empowered to run a campaign in the future because it's within reach of just about anyone. If you can run a $25,000 campaign and win, now we have done something that really has moved the needle in terms of opening up the democratic process to the masses, not just those with deep pockets or those with a lot of support from the two big parties. So that's the number 2 way. And the number 3 is for advisory groups. I mentioned that there are 4 advisory groups: housing, jobs, education, public safety, and actually there's a 5th one, budget. Well, we really want to make sure that when we come out with specific numbers, that they are very, very solid, that we've done our research, and that no one's can really question that, can you really do this? Can you put money there? So we have some people that we've recruited for different ones, but we're also looking for more. So that's the kind of sort of the backdrop. I'll just kind of finish. We have, like I said, we mobilized back in November. I filed some of the papers. We'll file the rest of the papers this week. So we have an FPPC number. So everything will be a go. The website is up. We're having weekly meetings. So we really are kind of hitting on all cylinders. It's January. It's early. We feel very, very confident by the time the season picks up and it heats up and endorsements are kind of being valued and all those things, that will be well positioned to get good recognition by the press, which I feel are a huge gatekeeper to who gets airtime, who doesn't, who's legitimate, who's not. So I feel that will be kind of a force out there. I do keep repeating, and I was mentioning to Josh earlier, it will take an element of luck. I know that. I get that. Interesting enough, there was David Letterman, I will finish with this, had an interview with Barack Obama on Netflix just a couple of nights ago. And in there, Obama himself said it takes that element of luck in all of these things, but we are going to be prepared, so when the luck does knock on the door, we can answer. So with that, I appreciate everyone's attention and thank you, and questions.